We live.
And we are live. Welcome to Philly Inspires. Where are they now? Now, this is a show where we introduce you guys to some very inspirational people in the Philadelphia area that can enlighten and raise you to a higher level of consciousness. And in today's world, we are dealing with human rights violations that need to be rectified, and people are demanding equality. So today, I have the lovely entrepreneur. We have the former Community Partnership Liaison for the Office of the Mayor and business owner of Getting the Max Out of Life, life coach, motivational speaker, Maxwell Brown.
How's everybody doing?
Hey. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, let's just get into it because I feel like you are the perfect person to talk to right now. We are in such a charged time. Like, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I mean, mentally it's kind of tough to see everything that's happening. I think the biggest difference for me, as opposed to when I was a kid, I have a better understanding, and I'm in a better place to deal with it and probably help some people get through with it. But it's a tough situation.
It is a tough situation because, I feel like since the moment Africans stepped foot on this country, we have been dealing with inequality and brutality. And now people are fighting for this police brutality. Finally, people are seeing what we are talking about. So I just wanted to get your opinion as someone who is an entrepreneur, who's been there on the ground helping the community and has had past dealings with law enforcement. What can we do as a community to overcome and combat police brutality?
Well, I think first you got to have an honest conversation with yourself, and both parties, police and community, have to come together and have an honest conversation and an open dialogue about how they see each other's role. Because the community has to protect its most vulnerable citizens. And the police have to make sure that that protection is being done in a way that services and betters the community. So I think you just have to it has to be a mutual respect where police are not coming into the community thinking, well, we got to save everybody, or everybody's at this level, so we got to treat them this way. And that's not necessarily true. I think a lot of times, a lot of things that get blown out of proportion is you have good cops and bad cops.
Right.
Just like you have good people and bad people. You have good people in your community and bad people in your community. But I think the problem that most of us have is that the good cops don't say nothing about the bad cops. They let it go. And the perfect example of that was that situation with George Floyd. How could you, as a human being, sit there and allow that man to put his hands in his pocket and his knee on that man's neck and listen to him cry for 9 minutes and not do nothing about it? Nothing inside of my soul could have kept me from pushing that man off of him and asking him, is he crazy? And I think that's the problem people have. It's not that people don't want to trust police. We need police. We have to trust police because they throw themselves right into the line of fire. But the issues then come when you see situations like this. Dude, like, what are we doing here? That could have been me. That could have been my brother. That could have been anybody very close to me. That could have been anybody that looks like me. And you're going to allow this to go on. And so I think it's an honest conversation where police are going to have to step up to the plate and say, listen, I want you to be accountable, but I'm going to hold myself accountable as well. And it has to be more in action and less in words.
Absolutely. I mean, we're out here protesting, not just in the city, not just in the country, but the world. Right. So everybody is paying attention. But I'm just like you. I think personally that the change is going to come in our neighborhoods, within our friendship groups, within our families. And that's where you're going to see the real change that's going to trickle to the masses. But do you think there is anything that we should be concentrating on to implement in our community? Should we be talking about self-esteem, education, economics? What do
But all of those play a key factor, but I think you have to take a hard. So one of the biggest turning points in my life was looking in the mirror and asking myself, "Who are you?" and recognizing that I was at the forefront of everything that I've been through, good, bad, or indifference. My actions, attitude, and behavior played a profound role in whatever situation I saw myself in. And so I think if each individually, not collectively, but individually, start to take a hard look at themselves and their thought processes and their behaviors and so forth, and how they deal with people, and probably more importantly than anything else, how they see themselves, then it'll transfer over in their behaviors and in their day-to-day life and their communication and so forth. So, I mean, economically, educationally, all those things play a key role, but it starts like right within you, the person. And if you look at my program, one of the things that I talk about in my program,
your
it works
program?
for me. It works for me. It works for me. There are 5 key points: knowing yourself, patience and discipline, accountability and responsibility, environment awareness, and self-respect. These are all things that you can control. And if you control them and handle yourself accordingly based on them, then everything else, I'm not saying that things are not going to happen, but what I'm saying is that knowing yourself gives you a starting point for presenting yourself well. You know your strengths and weaknesses. You know your good and bad. So nobody is not going to be able to come up to you and pull you off of your square and try to embarrass you by telling you something about yourself that you don't know, right? Environment awareness helps you understand the type of person that you're going to be dealing with, the type of situations that you're going to face with, the type of audiences, meaning whether it's work, business, or play, whether it's home with your friends, it gives you a starting point for how you're going to be able to present yourself.
Right.
Self-respect. When you respect yourself, you're not going to do certain things. You're not going to say certain things. You're not going to carry yourself in a certain way, right? Patience and discipline. All of these things that you've become did not happen overnight, and it's not going to change overnight. But you have to have enough patience and discipline that when you see yourself starting to go down that road, you got to pump your brakes and say, "Stop. Let me back up because I know what the outcome is going to be, and let me regroup, and then let's move forward."
Absolutely. So everything you mentioned basically was everything I just asked. Self-esteem, education, knowing yourself, and that is all a part of your program. It works for me. Going a little bit more into detail about how you're impacting the youth, because this is focused primarily towards the youth, correct?
Absolutely. And so this is what. So let me ask you this: what's the most important relationship you're ever going to have on the face of this earth?
I suppose it's the one with myself. The one I wake
Nope.
up with, the one I go to sleep with. No.
Nope.
People
Nope.
I live with.
A son's relationship with his mother and a daughter's relationship with her father not
Oh,
only
okay.
sets the stage for how they see themselves, but what's acceptable and unacceptable behavior from members of the opposite sex. Your father teaches you how a man is supposed to act, how he's supposed to treat you, how he's supposed to care for you. Your father makes you feel comfortable in interacting with a man. If that relationship is messed up, every other relationship you have is going to be messed up until you stop, you acknowledge it, you heal from it, and you grow from it, right? Because if you think about your relationship with your father, and then ask yourself, what type of man interests me? What attracts me to a man? If you had a great relationship with your father, then you're looking for the same characteristics and behaviors that your father exhibited.
I
If
know,
you
isn't it so scary?
if you didn't, then you're looking for totally the opposite. And what people don't understand is that child, that first relationship, if that relationship is messed up, that kid is going to be searching for a long time to try to identify with themselves Because the thought process is, if I couldn't get along with my mother, or if I couldn't get along with my father, or if my mother didn't want me, or if my father didn't want me, how am I supposed to fit in anywhere else where I never learned to be comfortable around the folks who gave birth to me? Right? And so my program focuses on having these young folks understand that your parents came along and had a life long before you came along. So it's not always about you, because kids internalize everything.
Yeah.
Right? Everything, because they don't see the world as big as we see it. Right? I didn't see the world as a kid the way I see it as an adult. And so a lot of times kids take what's happening in their lives and they internalize it. They say it happened because of me. If I wouldn't have done this, and then if there's nobody there nurturing them, if there's nobody there helping them understand and processing for them how to get through it, it sticks with them. And these are character traits that they built into their adulthood. And if you never stop and deal with those issues, it's going to affect you the rest of your life. And so, if anything, we need to be more conscious of three things.
Okay.
Very conscious. And I know folks are going to say, yo, you know, I don't care what they say, actually. I'm not even going to mention it.
We shouldn't care.
Nobody says that you have to have a baby with everybody you sleep with. We need to be mindful who we decide who we're going to bring kids into this world by.
Are you talking too loud up in here?
Understand, we need to be mindful of that, because that kid that you bring into this world, if you're not mentally and emotionally ready to be responsible for their every being from the time they come out of the womb until they're of age where they can start to learn about life themselves, you are failing that kid. We need to, number two, we need to understand that we as parents are teachers. Our trials and tribulations become lessons that we can teach our kids so that they don't have to go through those same trials and tribulations.
Right.
Our life experiences become lessons so that we can articulate and show our kids how we were able to overcome something and get through something and fight through something. Not complain about it. Not make excuses for it. And then the most important thing that we could ever do, especially for our kids, is tough love.
Okay.
Tough love. You cannot, one thing and I'm adopted. One thing my father used to always say to me, and I didn't understand this, is this going to hurt me more than it hurts you? And I'm saying, Dad, like, I'm the one getting this whipping. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this dude tripping. But those lessons. So my dad owned a gas station. And I used to go work at his gas station. He had this employee, this girl at the gas station. So the girl would work 3 to 11. I would come home from school. I would go to the gas station and I would work. And I used to like to try to talk to this girl all the time. But like, yo, come holler. Like holler at me. Like I'm 16. I'm feeling myself. And she used to always say, like, I got a boyfriend. I got a boyfriend. I got a boyfriend. I don't care about your boyfriend. Holler at me. Like let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about this. Holler at me. So one night, her boyfriend came to the gas station and got in a fight with me and beat the snot out of me.
Oh my gosh.
And my dad sat there and he watched this man beat me. And on the ride home, my dad said to me, he said, let me ask you a question. I said, what? He said, are you mad at me? And in my mind, I'm saying, Pop, you just sat there and let this dude beat me up. What do you think? I said, yeah, I'm mad at you. He said, why are you mad at me? I said, Dad, you just sat there and let this man beat me up. He said, hold up, son. He said, I thought when you wrote that check, you had enough money in the bank to cash it.
Okay.
And I shut my mouth after that.
Okay.
Because he was right. The girl tried to tell me to stop. He tried to tell me to stop. And when I didn't stop, I had to learn a lesson. It was a painful lesson at 16 that I learned, but it's a lesson that has stayed with me for the rest of my life. And that lesson was simple. Don't write a check you ain't ready to cash. Keep your mouth shut. Understand the situation you get yourself into and what the outcomes can be before you do it. And so if we're not willing to let our kids fall, where we're able to catch them and help them process what they just went through, society's not going to do it for them. Because the same person that is sitting there saying, yo, you can't do that to your kid, is the same person in the next frame saying, why y'all let that man do that? He should be locked up for the rest of his life.
Exactly. Well, this brings me to another point. Okay, so you briefly touched on your past, but I don't know if everyone knows that you were adopted at age 8.
Yes.
After your mother was unable to care for you and left you at the police station one day.
Yes.
And this has been, elaborate on your story, because when I was watching your story, I was so emotional listening to your story and all the things that you had nothing to do with that happened and all of the adjustments that you had to make throughout your journey. So talk about the time that you got adopted, you had some troubles in your life.
No, I've been locked up.
Come up out of it. Hey, I mean, talk about it.
I'm not embarrassed about nothing that happened to me in my life. I was locked up for 14 years for murder. I'm not embarrassed by it. I would not be the man that I am today if I not have gone through everything that I've gone through. And because of what I've gone through and how I've been able to have honest conversations with myself and adapt and adjust is the reason why I'm sitting here in a position that I am in. For a long time, my mom abandoning me affected my self-esteem because my thought process was if my mother didn't want me, why would anybody else want me? And so if I walked in the room and looked at you and you looked at me, I didn't think that you were looking at me for anything good. And I instantly had an attitude. I had a negative thought about life and about people in general. I never imagined that someone would look at me and say, yo, this is a good dude. I always imagined that when people looked at me, they were talking negatively about me. They had a negative thought. And instantly, because of that thought process, I instantly got an attitude. And it was during my incarceration where I had gotten 2 years in the hole for a fight. And the hearing examiner said, I'm going to give you 2 years in the hole. I went back in the cell and I looked in the mirror and I asked myself, who are you? And I didn't have an answer. And I spent the next 2 years writing about every experience in my life. And I realized I was suffering from insecurity and low self-esteem. That's that mom look, right? And so
somebody's making noise up in the dance radio.
I started writing about my life and my life experiences. I wasn't writing a program. I was physically and mentally tired. And I was trying to save myself. I was trying to understand why I kept finding myself in all of these negative situations. And believe it or not, it was algebra that helped me with the equation. Because what I did was I took me and my mom and I said, if you take me and you replace me, what's the probability of the same things happening? It doesn't change.
Right.
But if you replace my mother with somebody else, can things change? So my mom was a common denominator. And once I understood that, that's what freed me.
You could say it wasn't
me.
It wasn't you. You didn't have to internalize that.
It wasn't me. And so from that point forward, my mission has been to have young folks understand that sometimes it's not you. Yes, in theory, our parents are supposed to protect us, nurture us, grow us, groom us, prepare us. But sometimes the reality is it just doesn't work out that way. And so you can either stay in the mode that you are and feel like that you're a victim and stay there and expect people to treat you like a victim, or you can fight through it and deal with it and grow from it, and you'll find that you'll become a much better person.
That was deep, because that's easier said than done, obviously. And all the years that you internalize something that someone else has done, knowing that it didn't really have anything to do with you. You weren't a bad kid, or, you know, there's nothing that you could have changed as a child to change an adult. So, wow. And I really appreciate you always being candid with your story and your journey that you had to go through to be the Maxwell Brown you are today. I know it wasn't easy. When I hear, you know, you say in the hole and things like that, so casually, I'm heartbroken hearing that. You know, but you have to live it, obviously.
Imagine how I felt.
Exactly. Imagine how you felt. And that's why I'm mad. Because
don't be mad. And this is what people, once you understand, once I accept the responsibility for my actions, my attitude, and my behavior. And let me be clear about something. I'm not saying that things are not going to happen. Things are always going to happen to you. Your response, how you deal with it, your attitude is going to determine your success or failure. Right? Like, have you ever walked in the room? Let me ask you a question. You ever walk in the room and see somebody and be like, yo, that girl gets on my everlasting nerves, and she come over here, and then she come over and you be like, hey, girl, right?
Yes.
Nothing positive has come out of a negative thought. Nothing.
Right.
And so you have to stop the thought. You cannot have a negative thought and have a positive reaction. A negative thought leads to a negative behavior, which is going to get you a negative reaction. You have to stop the thought. So you might walk in the room now and be like, there go that girl. You know what? So what? She in the room, big deal. I'm going to speak to her, and I'm going to keep it moving. And it's not going to affect anything that's going on that's supposed to be happening for me in this room, right? So you have to you control. If you control the things that you can control, your attitude, your actions, and your behavior, which are the three most important things that determines our success or failure. If you can control that in a positive way, whatever the situation is, you're going to come out in a positive light. Whatever the situation is.
That is so true. And I feel, just talking to you, I just feel so uplifted and positive right now, you know? Just obviously when you hear things reinforced, you're like, oh yeah. Keeping positive thoughts in your head, redirecting the negative thoughts, and inspiring the youth, and also speaking to the adults that are raising the youth, because this matters so much. So thank you so much for this conversation. Please let the people know where they can find you and your program.
You let them know. No, I have a website. My website is all one word, gettingthemaxoutoflife.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. I'm everywhere.
You're everywhere. Well, we're gonna be following you, you know, because I love to talk to people who are not coming out in the community as a savior. You know, somebody who's there, somebody who's relatable, and somebody who can humanize an experience. So
well, I think what people need to understand, though, real quick, is that our community doesn't need to be saved, right? We have folks in our community that are doing great things, right? It ain't just me. Right. So, you know, I think people don't really understand partnerships and relationships and how folks my biggest partnerships, right? I have a partnership right now with the police department. We take young men, Inspector Johnson, the police commander, training commander. We take young men out to the police academy to have them go through situations that police go through so they can understand why police say, when they say stop, this is important for you to stop. They go through real life police situations and they get a chance to experience what a cop is going through so that now when they interact with police, they can understand that it's not personal. It's not racial. It's not. Mike Goins, the community director for the 76ers. We have junior 76ers in 2 schools, and we're going to do more this year. Another black young man, right?
Doing big things.
Right. We have DTRL Villa with Tremaine and Jalen, who are both black men, come from the inner cities, right? Who are doing great things, and they're figuring out how to give back to their communities. You have one of the best programs in Philly right now, West Financial Institution, West Gold Fellowship, where they take high school kids and they travel throughout the summer and learn different businesses, programs, and stuff through Jim Barnett. You got a deputy chief of staff, managing director, Tumar, and Tumar Alexander, who's a black man who grew up in North Philly. So there are folks in the community who are doing what needs to be done. So folks they don't need to be saved. What folks need to understand that if you're going to ask for help, if you're going to say, I need your help or I need your services, then you got to be willing to put forth the work. You got to be willing to acknowledge your shortcomings. You got to be willing to say, okay, maybe I was wrong in my thought process and maybe I need to do something different. You got a guy in B.Y. Jennings who quit his job and became a professional fighter, walked in the gym and said, I want to do something different. From North Philly. Okay, and went on to fight for the world title. And now trains with the best athletes in the world. Okay? You got another guy over at Foot Locker who took a job, who said that I'm just going to, figure out how to make some money and take care of my family, and was able to grow and build a brand. So there's plenty of us who are doing great things out in the community. But when we come to you, you have to be prepared to do the work. And you have to actually Right.
But everybody has to be willing to do the work. And you know what? Don't you think we're ready now? I feel like there's an energy.
Only time will tell. Only time will tell. Only time will tell.
But I'm going to keep pushing it. I'm going to keep pushing it, and I'm going to keep fighting the power. And I'm going to keep taking your advice. And I want to, again, thank you, Maxwell Brown, for your time here on Philly Inspires. Where are they now? If you guys would like to get in touch with Mr. Maxwell Brown, remember, he has a website called gettingthemaxoutoflife.com. He's also on Facebook and Instagram. Okay, so thank you guys for joining us for this very enlightening edition of Philly Inspires. Where are they now? Next week, we are going on a little hiatus, but we will be back, and we will let you know the next time you'll see our smiling faces. Again, thank you so much, Maxwell Brown, and to everybody watching, thank you so much for your support.
Hey, appreciate y'all. Shout out to my homie, Sean Colson, one of the best basketball trainers in the city, and my other big homie, Bo Donaldson, former baseball player for the New York Yankees, who has a construction business here in Philly. Again, we got folks who are doing the do. You just got to want to do the do too.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and we will see you later.